Hello, I'm Robert. Welcome back to our classes on painting. Today we're going to do a watercolor, and it's going to be an autumn watercolor. I think you're going to enjoy it. This is just a wonderful time of the year. It's October in Missouri here, and it's a wonderful time to take a stroll out into the woods. I am fortunate that I have a path behind our home that goes into the woods. It's a nice walking path, bike riding path. So it's nice to just take a walk out there. There's benches on the road. It's wonderful to just paint on location and to just pick up some leaves. As you can see, my little guy is surrounded by a few of the leaves that I've picked up along the way, the path, just to give us a reminder of autumn. So we're going to use those just as a springboard. And this is a time where, used to be when we didn't have the virus, which we have now in the quarantines, that we could go over and grab a bunch of leaves and go over into a coffee shop and set a little still life down on the table, have a nice cup of coffee, maybe a scone, and just relax and start painting. And I kind of miss that, but I guess that'll be here sooner rather than later. Hopefully, that we'll be able to do those things again. But as I said, autumn is a wonderful time to paint. There's so many different subjects out there. We're going to do a leaf today. And even though in my class we've done this every October or autumn we do leaves, it's always wonderful to go back and redo them. It's never the same. Your painting is never the same. You get different leaves that you might want to look at, different thoughts, different compositions. There's just numerous compositions, and they fit in well to watercolor because when the leaves change, there are so many nice, vibrant watercolors on that. So you can do it several different ways, the painting. You could even just go with a monochromatic painting where we just have one color or so and just do different values of that. We've done that many times too. So you do it the way that you want, and really when you take your leaves, it's nice to have a couple leaves on hand because then you can study the vein pattern that they have in the leaves, the holes that they have in the leaves, the burnt ends that they have. So it's nice to just grab some leaves to have just as a springboard. When I took some of these leaves, I used to grab a bunch of them in for a class to paint, and then I would distribute them. One time we went a little bit too far. We got some leaves, and some of them had some bugs in them, so we had a little bit of a problem with bugs. But anyway, so today we're going to make a composition. We're going to go a little bit on the orange and red side of our color wheel. So we're going to do it that way. So these are the colors that we're going to be using. Some sap green, some cad yellow, some ochre, yellow ochre, a little bit of sepia. We'll have some cad red, a little cad orange, indigo, and violet. And those are all above here. These colors are all above here. We're wetting them a little bit. I take a little bit of spritzer bottle and just spray them so they're nice and moist for us. And then I'm going to, as I said, it's nice that you might want to explore the color wheel and decide where you're going to put, where your painting is going to end up. We're going to be around right in here in the color wheel. The reds, the oranges, right about here. The complement of the red, of course, is a green. So we'll have a green, probably a green branch that would come across here. But mostly we're going to be right in this section with our colors. We might add a little bit of violet, but it's going to be mostly red and oranges and yellows. So kind of keep that in mind when you're painting. Fall is a wonderful time for us to get those nice autumn colors. So again, here's our colors. that we'll be using. And here's the rough little sketch that you could use. A lot of times it's nice to just do those leaves freehand and just start and just loosely paint the leaves from your images. Here's one that we did just practicing a little bit. So here's some that's going to have a little bit more of the colors that we're going to use today. So we got the oranges and yellows and ochres in here. This one, another one, just a little practice one that had a little bit more of the purples, the violets in here, and the yellows, of course, and the sepias and yellow ochre. So those are a couple of different versions of what we're going to do today. But as I said, we're going to be a little bit more on the yellow red side, and we're going to have more of the shapes that we have over on this side of the palette. So you can see that the drawing how we have it. So I'm going to take this down. Here's our light sketch. So it's pretty light, but it's a little bit dark on my side. It's a little bit darker than I might want it for our painting, but I wanted you to see a little bit of it, so I made it a little bit darker. We probably put in some dewdrops in there and some burnt ends. So the first thing that we're going to do with this painting is we're going to grab some water, and I have a silver black velvet brush that I'm using in this case. And I'm just going to wet our paper. And I might put just a tint of color even in this stage of just wetting. This brush is kind of nice because it comes to a point, so it lets you get into our tips easily. So as I said, I'm just adding, really, I'm just putting a little bit of a tint of color to begin with. At this stage, you might have just added clear water, but because we want it, we're going to have it autumnish. It's all right that this whole thing is going to be a tint of the ochres, cad yellow, oranges, reds. So I'm trying to get this paper to be spongy, very absorbent. So I need to give it a little bit of time to soak into the paper, to make the paper just a little absorbed. I don't want it super wet, unless you're going to do a very abstract version of this, in which case you could have it super wet for your base coat. But in this case, we're not. We're just going to wet this, and I'm giving it, you don't have to give it a long time. It only takes, maybe take about a minute for it to absorb into your paper. I'm using a 100-pound, 140-pound weight Arches paper in this case. So now I'm going to come up here, I'm going to grab a little mixture of my cad yellow, little yellow orange, little ochre, and I'm going to just strengthen my areas. The paper is absorbent now. So it's nice this is a wonderful time for us to put the colors in because the paper is a tiny bit spongy. And this painting is a lot of layering, a lot of dry time in here maybe, a lot of different values into it. But as I said, in this case, we're just starting with our undercoat. And this is really the second layering because the first coat was the water. And now this one is our second coat with a little bit of cad yellow and ochre, tiny bit of orange in there. We'll try to make this as pastel as possible because that's the nice beauty of watercolor, of course. Okay. So I've got my base coats in here. And now I'm going to come back and I'm going to grab a little bit of my cad red. And I'm going to, the paper is still wet, so it's nice and absorbent. And that is the wonderful time for us to put this on. If it gets dry, then we're going to have to re-wet it. Come back. I'm going to just build up a little bit of a color pattern in here. So I'm basically cad, as I said, cad yellow with a little bit of ochre and cad red. If this paper gets dry on you, as I said, we're going to have to re-wet it. Now, here's a nice example here. There's a little bit of a pocket here. So I'm going to take a dark I've got a little bit of my Payne's Gray, and I'm just going to outline that pocket. And the paper is wet, so it's pulling it back. So it makes a nice shape, nice burnt out shape. Here's another one up here. So I just kind of touched the edge, leaving the white in the center, and because it's wet, it pulls it into the painting. Then I'm going to come, and I'm using my liner rigger brush, and I'm grabbing some of that, maybe I'll grab a little bit of the violet, a little bit of sepia, and I'm just going to do on the edges, same thing. And I want to do this while it's a little bit wet, because I want it to pull it back. I want the color to pull back in. So I'm kind of outlining. And at this point, I think I'm going to, it seems to be drying a little bit, so I'm going to take a brush and add some more water. to the edges here, because I want it, when I put the edges on, I want it to pull inward. And when it's dry, it won't do that. It won't blend right. So I'm going to re-wet around the perimeter of this leaf. So I can get it to pull. Because I don't want it as, I want to make a little bit of a hard to a soft edge. Now when you're doing this, you of course would want to paint on a flat surface or a surface that's slightly elevated at one end so the colors would flow down. So you might put a little board behind here on your table and then the colors could flow down. But for demonstration purposes, I'm on my easel. So now I've got a little bit of wet, so I can come back in here. And kind of build an edge. In teaching classes, I often would not tell, almost every time I tell students not to outline. A lot of times they would just try to get a real dark outline on their paintings on both sides. We'd always have one side that would have to be in the shadows and one that would be softer, but in this case, this is one of these paintings where we're really outlining it quite a bit. Because the ends are where the burnt ends would be, and the sun has hit this top. And you can see where it's wet, it kind of just pulls it back into the center. And we're getting some nice soft edges. Okay, we're just got that just about outlined. So that kind of indicates a little bit of the burnt ends. Take my little flat brush and kind of pull some of that down just to soften it. Working it up into the painting. I've got my mix up top here. yellow ochre, cad yellow, cad red, I'm going to try to protect a little bit of a ridge pattern here, a lightness going down here to indicate veins. So I'm going to come up into this area. I'll paint this, pull it back, just a little bit more orange, a little bit stronger value. I'm going to throw a little bit of the cad red into it. And then I'll come on the other side and I'll put in a different value, different color combination, more of the cad yellow. So these become almost different planes. Back up top. And come down to the left hand side. Put some more values over there. We'll add a little bit of the ochre. So this again is we're just trying to add some more values, starting to build up more values, values, values. Now I'm going to come in here with a little bit stronger color, and it's drier, and I'm just going to make some, these are little burnt patterns that you'd have in the leaves. And I'm doing that now because it's a little bit drier. I'm just trying to build some shapes and patterns into these sections, or maybe the sun has hit it a little bit more and the colors have changed. Pretty soon we're going to put some more values over all of these, but now is the time to just suggest a few things that are going on. This is always a nice time, and you don't have to do this, but I like to do this. I have a stencil brush, but you could also use a toothbrush. So you can use a stencil brush or a toothbrush. And kind of do a little splattering. So you can either use this little toothbrush, or this is a splatter brush. And I'm just going to wet the splatter brush. And just make a little bit of a suggestive pattern in there. Then I'm going to come in with my sap green. And just put the first coat across. I'm going to highlight it with a little bit, a touch at the ends, darks. Highlighting a little bit of the vein pattern. And then I'm going to do a little bit more of the splattering. That gives me a dark value in there. I'll look for these little pockets where I can suggest a little bit of holes. Come down here and drag a little bit more down into it. I'm just suggesting a little bit of a vein pattern. Then I'm going to come back with another wash. Since it's a little bit dry now. We'll get a little more of our reds in here. A little more of our nice oranges. And even maybe a little bit of our violets. Take a little dark and re-emphasize our holes. Grab a little more violet. A few more veins. This is using our nice liner brush. You can almost think like a spider web pattern. Okay, so I'm going to come back one more time and just get a tiny more splatter. Even on the outside, I want a little splatter on the outside for composition's sake. Okay. Come back with my nice violet. And we'll sign this one. So I hope that gives you an idea. And we have another Bob Ross one coming next few days. It'll be another autumn painting. So I hope you join us. Hope you give this a try. use your colors, use your color wheel, and be very creative. The splattering really helps. It does a nice, gives a nice textured effect. When this dries, you can also go back and add a few more colors. Put another layer across there. So hope you'll try it and hope you look at our other videos. Thank you very much.